Can you believe this weather? Believe it or not, it is noon. It's a great day to be in the shop making lures. Welcome back to the Engineered Angler. Today I'm going to build a lure that was suggested by one of you guys. Somebody out there said it would be a good idea for me to check out the Lazy Ike Sail Shark, and I had never heard of it, so I went online and took a look and pulled up some photographs, and this little lure looks so simple and rudimentary it almost made me chuckle a little bit. Looks like something a little kid might have drawn. But what really captured my attention is that sort of exaggerated dorsal fin on the thing, and it made me think of something I did a few months ago where I made two lipless crankbaits. And in the video, while I was showing you how I was making these two lures, I pointed out that one of the lures had a little tiny fin on the top and the other one had a little tiny fin on the bottom. And then I took them both out to the water, got some underwater shots, and showed you how those two different fin locations can make a difference.
This is the one with the fin on top. And you can see it has a pretty broad wobble, especially in this shot. You can really see it shaking back and forth. Here you can see how much tighter that wiggle is. This is the one with the fin underneath.
And if you want to know more about that, stick around. So to replicate this lure, I need some dimension. So I got online and I found some photographs, both with the lure next to a ruler and one with actually the paperwork out of the packaging for the lure that actually tells you what the dimensions are. Not a whole lot, but we know that it's 1.5 inches long at least, and the general shape is sort of an ellipse that's been cut off. The fin starts right at the tie-on eye, kind of goes up a little bit and then kind of blends in with the back cutoff part of the lure. Now this is probably a little off, but I think we're pretty close here. From photographs of the lure from beneath, I think I can see where they embedded the weight somewhere near the front of the lure. There's a hook eye in the back and another one right about underneath the tie-on eye. Now I know that the length is 1.5, and by printing one of the images I can get the ratio between the length, and then it's an easy process to calculate the height of the lure and even the height of the fin. So let's get a print. Okay, so here's my printout, and this is the way I'm scaling it off. I know that this in real life is 1.5 inches long, and so I measured it and it came to 3 3/16 inches, and then I divided 3 3/16 by 1.5, and I get a factor. That's 2.125 inches. So I know that any dimension that I pull off this print, I can just divide it by 2.125, and I get the actual size of the original lure. We know the length is 1.5 inches. The height of the body from the belly to the thickest part is 0.824 inches, and I've included the dimension in centimeters as well. The height of the fin, that's from the body to the very top, measured as 1 inch, but converted to 0.47 inches in real life. The distance from the nose to the tie-on eye is 0.559 inches in real life. So we got our dimensions. I got my piece of wood, a little piece of camphor. It's about 3/8 inch thick, and that's about as close as I could estimate the thickness of the actual lure. It's pretty thick from what I can tell from the images I pulled up. And then I just included the boxed in dimensions, the length and the total height of the body. And now I need to sketch in a shape. I'm gonna get started with this little ellipse drawing guide here, and I'm just gonna find the ellipse that looks closest to what it should be, and I'm not sure I'm gonna find anything because this thing is so weird. You can see it comes down pretty quickly to the nose, has a very flat spot here, and then this is a lot more shallow than the top, so I may have to end up sketching this. So I'm gonna do that with a pencil, and then I'll refine it with that white ink pen. Then I know it's pretty flat from here to this red dot. That's the distance to the tie-on eye. So I'm gonna draw a straight line there. And that looks pretty good to me. I'll go ahead and put it in white ink so it's a lot more visible. Yeah, I think that looks pretty close. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out, and then I'll show you how I'm gonna make the fin. Pretty straightforward cut, and I missed all the footage because the battery ran out on my camera. So now I'm going to take this to the belt sander and refine some of the shapes, the curve around the nose, and then I'm going to try to make a little bit of a concave in the back. And all I'm going to do on this is round off the edges, because it looks like on the original that there's no taper on it at all. I think it's coming out the way it's supposed to look. I'm going to do the rest of the sanding by hand because this is soft wood. But I really need to start thinking about how much weight I need to add to this thing. And then we'll start marking the locations for the eyes. And then I've got to cut a slot for the tail. We've got to make the tail, so I'll show you how I'm going to do that. All right, I'm pretty happy with the result of my sanding. And you'll notice I took a little bit of a design liberty where the original had the tail kind of scraggly going out as it goes down. Kind of, it looks like they were trying to follow the shape of the back of the fin. Mine goes in, and I just think that looks nicer. So I always find it just a little difficult to copy a lure exactly. I always have the urge to add just a little bit of my own design. All right, I'm going to make the fin out of this little piece of plastic. This is a soft, like Lexan kind of plexiglass that I got from a little photo frame. So I'm tracing the shape of the back so I can shape the fin to fit, and then I'll draw the fin. I think I can just look at this one and freehand a drawing, but I know that the height of the fin is 1.19, let's call it 1.2 centimeters, which is right at the top of my tape right here. All right, let's see what that's gonna look like. Yeah, I think that's gonna look just about right. All right, the reason I put all this tape on here is because we're gonna have a little bit of fun with this build, because I really wanna see what a big fin like that would do on a normally shaped lipless crankbait. On a video I made a couple of weeks ago, I took two identical lures and I showed you how to spray UV resin out of your airbrush. But now I wanna take these and I'm gonna put a big shark tail fin on one of them, leave the other one the same, and then we'll try all three of these lures in the water and see how they do. I'm going to cut these out on the bandsaw. And we'll pull the bandsaw in so we have a little better lighting. That one's pretty close, but still need to get some sanding done. But now I have to cut a slot right where they're going to be embedded. And what I've done here, I hope you can see it, is I've drawn two little guidelines, and then that helped me find the center. And I got a line right in the center. Now I'm going to take a disc on my Dremel and cut a slot. And I find using a really worn out disc, one that's worn to a small diameter, find that that's a little easier to control, and I have a little more accuracy with it. All right, let's do a quick test fit. All right, it's coming along. All right, so I put a white line right there where I believe the center is on this, and I hope I can follow that line, because this stuff is really slippery. So I think I got it wide enough now. Let's see. Seems like it needs to be a little deeper up front. All right, that's as deep and as wide as I dare to go with this, because otherwise I'm going to break into the case and it'll leak water and it'll only work for one cast. All right, I've got it set and I glued it in with the UV resin, and I think it looks pretty cool. And amazingly, I got it centered and straight up and down. It's a shame that the clear coat kind of chipped off. That's okay, I can give it another coat. All right, enough with this. Let's get back to the original build. All right, I think I got a good final fit on this thing, and I'm pretty happy with the accuracy of that cut, considering it's all by hand. And I'll do one side at a time. All right, it's time to drill the holes for the hook eyes. And I'm going to use these little traditional hook hangers. Of course, I'll close the eye and I'll screw them partially in, and then I'll put a little bit of crazy glue on them and run them in the rest of the way. All right, I put it in one of my little holders, and I'm going to put a clear coat on it, just an initial clear coat. I'm not going to clear coat the fin, but I'm not too worried about it either because it looks like all the old ones were painted, and I'm going to do the same. And since there's a combination of materials here, I'm not going to attempt to calculate how much weight I need in it. And the weight's not going to make that much of a difference. It just needs to sink. And I want it to sink pretty quick. So I'm going to use the trial and error method on this one. I'll clear coat it, and this way I'll be able to hang weights on it and put it in my tank. And when I get it to sink like I want it to, I'll drill some holes and put the weights in. All right, so you probably noticed I put a clear coat on that other one too. I'm gonna let those two set up for a couple hours, and then we'll start thinking about what kind of color scheme I'm gonna put on that thing. All right, it's been a while. Let's take a peek. This thing really looks just wicked. Can't wait to try this. Here's our classic lure, and it's time to float test it. Let's see how much weight it takes to sink it. All right, let's get this out. And of course, it's gonna float. And now we need to figure out how much weight it takes to sink it. All right, so first I'm gonna hang this little lead ball off of it and see where we go. And that gets it just to start sinking. That's good news. So if I add the weight of one hook, let's see how quick it sinks. I think that's pretty good. I think let's go with that. With the extra weight of the finish, we should be sinking about like that, or maybe a little more. All right, so let's formalize that weight. Here's the little hardware I hung off of it and the hook. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tear this out, or zero it with the weight on it. And then I know that I can add the weight of the two hooks I'm gonna use, the two split rings I'm gonna use, and then I need 3.63 grams of added weight. And let's see if this lead ball will do it. Yep, and it gives me an extra 0.64 grams of weight. So I could probably go with a slightly smaller one. Let's see if I can find one. All right, so I can use this split shot right here. It leaves me with 1.19 left to add, and then I add that other split shot, and it's right on zero. That's pretty doggone close. We'll use that. All right, so for the bigger of the two split shots, I'm gonna drill 5/16 hole as close to the front as I can get it. Let me drop the ball in there. It's nicely set in there. Now I just need to drill a much smaller hole just behind this for the other weight. And I'm going to shove it in there with a little tool there. All right, they're in there. Now I just need to fill these holes with some, I guess I'll use some UV resin and some of the sawdust that's laying around. All right, so I've got these things filled and hardened. I just need to sand them down smooth, and then we'll take this thing over to the paint booth and get it painted. All right, so I decided to go ahead and paint the fin on this thing, and so I scuffed it up with a little bit of a light sanding. And I also did the same thing for the body. I want to go ahead and do a real simple paint job, kind of a classic paint job. And I'm going to go with a bright opaque yellow on the belly. The main body is going to be kind of a bright green and then a dark green on top. And I'm going to do some kind of dark green highlight, maybe stripes, maybe some scales. I don't know, I'll decide as I'm going. The only thing I'm going to do to this one is I'm going to put a little spot of red on the top, just like this one, and a spot of red on the chin, and then I'll give it another clear coat and clear coat that one as well. So the next time I show you these, they'll be nicely clear coated. We'll throw on the hooks and we'll get in the water and see what happens. All right, I pulled both the lures out of the UV chamber and I put the hooks on it, and here's what this little dude looks like. Really unique looking, and I think pretty close to the original. And here's this little bit of a Frankenstein with its newly acquired fin on there. So I'm going to take these two shark fin lures along with the original version of the other lipless crankbait, and we'll go down to the lake. Hopefully the lake water won't be as murky as it has been, although all this rain, there's no telling. So there's one more thing I want to do. I want to get a final weight and see with the hooks and everything what it weighs.
Right at 10.67 grams.
And now let's see how it sinks. All right, that's just about where we wanted it. It's still floating off the hooks, so that's a really nice combination. I'm ready to go to the lake with this. All right, so we're on the water. That's kind of cool. The sun actually shines through the paint on the dorsal. That looks kind of cool. All right, which one first? Let's go ahead and do this old-timey.
So right off the bat, you can see it has a nice movement. It's a good wobble back and forth with not much roll. And it seems to be really stable. It's not really veering around. And you can really see how nice and clean the movement is in slow motion. Now, I didn't really get into my theory on these dorsal fins on lipless crankbaits, but I think that having a fin on top actually gives you a bigger action, and having a fin on the bottom kind of reduces that action, but it really is dependent on the lure shape and size. But I really didn't know what a fin this size would do to the action, but I guess we're going to find out with the experimental one. To me, this looks like a much more fluid action than you typically see on a lipless crankbait. Here's another angle and slow motion. I'm surprised at how stable it is. I'm really curious at seeing what the other one looks like and have a side-by-side comparison. Wow, there's definitely a difference. Look at that. It's a really high frequency, low amplitude vibration. It's just sort of shimmering. Pretty amazing. Let's see them side by side. Okay, here they are. They've been slowed down to 1/4 speed, and you can definitely see the one with the big fin has a broader movement. The one on the left without the fin is just a tight little movement and much quicker in its frequency. Keep an eye on them, and you can really see how those eyes flop back and forth. Definitely a big difference, but not as big a difference as I thought that big fin would make.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed the build and a little bit of a comparison. And if you did, don't forget to drop me a like. I'll see you guys next Friday.